The Chinese economy is currently deteriorating, and many people are struggling financially. However, until recently, it was said that the Chinese economy would overtake the US or recover rapidly through revenge spending. There was a time when urban Chinese consumers were eager to spend. One significant difference between Chinese and Japanese people is that many Chinese are willing to go into debt to consume. In contrast, many Japanese people dislike debt, except for things like home or car loans. For example, while there may be people who max out their credit cards with revolving payments, most people believe it's better not to do such things. However, in China, as I introduced a long time ago, there are people who engage in something called yang Kansas. This refers to strategies on how to increase the credit limit on your credit cards, and it was considered a status symbol to boast about how much credit you have. Essentially, people spent beyond their means, believing that having a large debt meant they could consume more. This kind of behavior might seem foolish on an individual level, but in a country where many people do this, the economy thrives because they buy things they don't really need, which keeps the economy going. Therefore, in countries where many people actively borrow money to consume, it has a positive effect on the economy. This is why Japan's economy doesn't grow explosively, and it might be related to the Japanese aversion to debt. However, if everyone consumed to the maximum extent of their credit, like Americans or Chinese, it wouldn't be sustainable. Although economic growth would be fast, it would eventually hit a wall, and the lenders would face issues, leading to major bankruptcies or economic downturns, and eventually a recovery. In such countries, the peaks and valleys of the economy become extremely pronounced. Currently, China is in one of those valleys. People who have accumulated large debts are in trouble. The biggest debts come from mortgages. During the real estate bubble, people borrowed heavily to buy expensive properties, often stretching their finances to the limit. As the economy worsens and incomes decrease, many people can't repay their mortgages. There are many such people in China now. However, what awaits them is a unique hell. Different from Japan or the US and China, there is no personal bankruptcy system. To be precise, it's not that it doesn't exist, but I will discuss that later. In China, while corporate bankruptcy exists, personal bankruptcy does not. So, for people whose monthly expenses on mortgage payments, revolving credit card payments, and car loans exceed their income, even if they work hard and earn money, they still find themselves in a worse financial situation, ultimately losing everything. Before that happens, mortgage payments stop, and while banks used to recover their loans by auctioning off the mortgaged properties, now, with falling property prices, even selling the property doesn't clear the debt. From the bank's perspective, they can't recover their loans, so they demand repayment for the remaining debt even after selling the property. When the mortgaged property is auctioned off, the debtor must find a rental property, which requires payment, and the bank still demands repayment for the remaining debt. So, many people are stuck with unmanageable debt, but since personal bankruptcy is not recognized, they can't escape their debts. If they miss debt payments, penalties are added, leading to skyrocketing interest rates. Just like in Japan or the US, once they miss a payment, their debt continues to grow, and no matter how much they work, they can only manage to pay the interest. This situation is expected to worsen in China. Furthermore, in China, if you miss a debt payment, your credit score drops, affecting your ability to travel on long-distance trains or flights, and even your child's education. This is detrimental to the Chinese economy. While pressuring people to repay their debts may work temporarily, when they can no longer pay, they stop using flights and trains, which affects the revenues of airlines and railways. If too many people end up in this situation, it has a negative impact on the Chinese economy, leading to more people unable to repay their debts. Recently, at the third plenary session of the Central Committee, there was a discussion on personal bankruptcy, which has garnered attention. The third plenary session is an economic policy decision-making meeting of Communist Party leaders. The fact that personal bankruptcy was discussed is significant. It suggests that they are considering exploring the implementation of a personal bankruptcy system. The term explore here in Chinese implies research or study rather than immediate implementation. This means that the Central Committee is only discussing research into a personal bankruptcy system. However, the fact that they are considering it is gaining attention across China, with people who are drowning in debt hoping that a personal bankruptcy system might save them. However, it still seems a long way off. Now, does that mean personal bankruptcy is not recognized in China? Actually, it has been introduced experimentally in some areas. In March 2021, a pilot personal bankruptcy system was introduced in Shenzhen. The idea was to test it in Shenzhen first to see what would happen and then decide whether to expand it nationwide. However, The process is complex and time-consuming, requiring expert involvement in creating personal asset inventories and legal procedures. In Shenzhen, the pilot system is not functioning as effectively as expected. The expectation that debt would be completely forgiven or that credit scores would be restored has not been met, and the results have not been as favorable as those in debt had hoped. In China, unlike in other countries, the personal bankruptcy system is being considered not to help individuals overwhelmed by debt, but to address the concerns of lenders who want to avoid losses. The Communist Party's approach seems to be to introduce the system in a way that does not harm the interests of lenders, who are, after all, aligned with the Communist Party. Therefore, I don't see much hope for those in China who are currently struggling with debt to find relief through the proposed personal bankruptcy system. The Communist Party is primarily concerned with its own interests, and the well-being of the general population comes second or third. This is why the Chinese economy is in its current state, with many poor people who have been left behind. As the economy deteriorates, the burden will fall on everyone except the privileged class within the Communist Party. I don't see a positive outlook for the future. That concludes today's discussion. I'll see you in the next video.